Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we are talking about the psychology of success this week. And right now I've got the science behind emotional resiliency. So the psychology of success says that there's kind of three major points in order to achieve success. And that is, you have to have a clear vision and goal. You have to be able to have emotional regulation and interpersonal skills. And when you can put those together, and that interpersonal skills is also accountability and vulnerability. And when you can put those together, then you really can master the art of success and really living within your values and your beliefs and not getting lost in these ideas of external validation, these comparison models that don't serve us. So there's a lot of good here, and we're going to dive right in. So what is resiliency and how is it connected to success? Resiliency is the ability to overcome challenges and stressors in your life. And so the way it is related to success is seen as a major stressor. And you can go back to yesterday's video, the psychology of success, and you can hear more about how it is all interconnected. But resiliency and what's happening in the brain neurologically when it comes to success. But resiliency is the ability to change your neural pathways to a more growth-oriented kind of approach and perspective to life. And that growth orientation creates an opportunity to see that we are not failing, we are not losing, but rather we are finding opportunities to pivot and to have meaning within our experience. And so what we're looking at is the ability to be able to look at information, find valid data points, and not get lost in all of the emotional entanglement that comes when we add judgment and reactions to the information that is getting put in. So perception, if you've ever known anything or researched sensation and perception, it was one of my favorite classes, is perception is one of the easiest ways to really distort and trick the mind. So if you think about like that 3D art, I can't remember what they're called, but it's like just a bunch of blues and reds and yellows, and if you like sit there and stare long enough, like an image will start to pop out. I could never do it, but potentially people were really good at it, and they were able to create that distorted perception to be able to see a cool image that would come and pop out at them just by kind of thwarting their gaze. So perception, especially visual perception, but all perception is up for, I guess, debate, you could say. It is how the brain is interpreting what is around us. It's not necessarily valid data points. And because our past experiences are a very big and crucial part of how we're interpreting and interacting with the world, it is all game for having distorted perception. So my new book, which is coming out in just a couple of weeks, we're actually starting the success group on November 18th and 19th. We have a women's young professional on Mondays at 5:30 Eastern Standard Time. And we have a growing up beyond divorce or separation or breakups for a men's growth group, success group, being able to use these principles of success and growth through emotional regulation. It's such an important concept. And being able to have that leadership mindset, you really have to, you got to start back here if you want to get up here. it's just the way it is. And I've got a really good graphic that I'm going to put on my blog. So go and take a look at it so that you can kind of see what I am talking about. But it starts in that lizard brain, that monkey brain. Information comes in. We open up our implicit memory, which is like, thousands of little windows on your computer open, and it's trying to find something similar so it can react quickly. And that all leads to an ability to build invalid data points, cognitive distortions, and a perceived reality, which is delusion. So if our perceived reality is that we suffer, or that we are the caretaker, or we are the hero, or we are the sage, then we will interpret life and we will act with life based on that information. So it's filters that we create in order to engage with the world. And only when we're in a grounded here and now state do we let go of that, those filters, and we can take reality in for what it's giving us, the valid data points it's providing us, and be able to act accordingly to those valid data points. So it's really, really hard because of the fact that we have years of data that is emotionally charged and created in this perceived reality. And then we have these valid data points, and then we have everything in between. And so what we're trying to do in dialectical behavior therapy, we call it the wise mind, is we have this intellectualized point and we have this emotional point. And what we're trying to do is take both into account so that we can make what we call a wise decision. Emotionally, I feel, and logically, I know, and they are together. And when we don't have that, because we have high stress in our lives, we get this idea of emotionally I can't feel, but logically I know, emotionally I can't feel. Let's put it in the other direction. So when you feel that way, or you say that, that's what's happening. It's cognitive dissonance. You're stuck right in between. You're in this place where emotionally your data points are invalid, and it's battling against the valid data points, and it's trying to figure out who's going to win. And typically our emotional brain is what's winning. And so if we don't want our emotional brain to win, then we need to take in valid data points and be able to start moving towards our executive function. And one of the best ways to do that is simple counting. It sounds so like basic, but it works. 1 + 1 is 2. 2 + 2 is 4. 3 + 3 is 6. Start your breathing. Start noticing what's happening in your body as you start to say this. And what you'll find is all the energy from that temporal lobe will start to come to that prefrontal cortex, and you'll start to feel more grounded. You'll start to realize that you're more connected into your environment, and you're going to be able to be more rational and not reactionary. And so we're seeking that action-oriented place so that we're no longer in a reactionary place. The 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is a good one, and I like it because mind-body connections are important. When we have trauma or chronic stress, and everybody who went through COVID technically has PTSD. Chronic stress and trauma look the same on an MRI. So being in quarantine, having what feels like your rights taken away, being stuck and feeling like you have no agency, these are all major pieces of what it is that creates trauma in our mind. So you are more likely to be reactionary than you are going to be action-oriented. Accept it. It is a valid data point. Accept it. And then what you want to do is, again, we want to, it creates a phobia. I lost my train of thought. I went somewhere else. So let's come back to the station. When we have trauma or chronic stress, what we find is the mind becomes phobic of the body. and the body becomes phobic of the mind. So when we're grounding, we're trying to find connections between the mind and the body. So the 5 senses is a great way to find that grounding technique. 5 things that I can see, 4 things that I can touch, 3 things that I can smell, 2 hear, 3 things that I can hear, 2 things that I can smell, 1 thing that I can taste. And I love Altoids for this because they are curiously strong. So if you're looking for something to quickly ground to, popping a quick Altoid in really opens up and connects you to your senses, connects you back to the body, and allows you to ground in that feeling. I also like doing colors. Sometimes my kiddos, when we do these, they're like, I don't understand that, Miss Jen. And I'm like, well, let's do colors. So like if you're outside and it's like a pretty day, then you probably go for like some blues and greens, right? You're probably likely to find blues and greens at 5. And then 4 things that are, whatever, yellow, brown, find some neutrals. And so what you're doing is you're connecting back to your environment. This works really well if you're trying to sleep and you've got all these things going on in your head and you're like, I can't. I have a busy day tomorrow and I'm just gonna fail. I know I'm gonna fail. This is what's gonna happen, right? This is the beginnings of that emotional brain trying to take over and take away from your executive function. Imagine a place that you love, a place that we call it a safe place, whatever you want to, but a place that doesn't bother you, you are safe, you know it very well, it is endearing to you. And then start picking out your favorite colors that are in that place. Go to that place, pick up the color, pick up the object in your mind and say, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 4, 3, 2, 1, then 3, 2, 1, and keep doing that. And it will help you ground to calm. And again, make you feel like, hey, I'm here. Logically, I know, and emotionally, I'm up for the game. And then we want to look at, again, this understanding of gratitude and suffering. They are on the same spectrum. And so, again, on that river of life metaphor, I just did this in the last video too, but it's so important. So you can go back there, you can listen to it now. On the river of life, we cannot control the current. We cannot control the weather, but we can control whether or not we're in the boat and what bank we get off on. And when we're in an emotionally reactionary, anxious state, we get off on the bank of suffering and despair. But when we can ground and we can look at all the information, then we can choose to find gratitude on the bank of value, strength building, and growth. And then always be careful of that boat. You can stay in the boat, but make sure, again, it's purpose-driven in the boat. You're not being productive, but rather you're being purpose-driven in that boat. Because I find that my clients somehow get a beaver attached to that boat and they think that they have to keep it there, and they don't. And again, that's more suffering and despair. There's not gratitude there. There's not value and pivoting and growth and learning opportunities. And so when we have that gratitude, when we can build a perspective of value building and growth, then we're no longer in a place of a perceived reality of struggling and suffering. And instead we're in a positive, we are reverberating positive energy because we're in a positive state. And therefore positive energy will come to us and we will be able to manifest positive energy. And then understanding, again, the idea of these universal constructs, which show us that there are 5 things that we all think and we all feel. And when we understand and are aware of these constructs, then we can stay in a grounded state and we can be present, allowing us to engage and investigate and be curious about what is around us. But when it gets triggered and we feel like we are not getting one of these constructs, then it's pulling us into a perceived reality, and it's a very strong connection. And then once we're in that perceived reality, it's really, really hard for us to get out of it. And so what we can do is we can have strategic stress management. Say that 3 times fast. And if we have strategic stress management, what we're doing is we're staying present, we're grounded, and we're not getting sucked into these thoughts and these feelings. We're not being stuck in just the overly intellectualized, but we're finding the wise mind and we're finding a connection to in between. And then when we talk about, this in between, we're really building into an idea of balance and connection with what is going on. One of the other ways we start to feel disconnected and we start to trigger those universal constructs and those perceived realities is when we're going through high stress situations. And so one of those ways that we have high stress situations is actually when we are grieving. And we grieve all the time because remember, grief is not linear. Those 5 stages can happen throughout your life. And at any point in time, an anniversary, a trigger, something can happen that'll bring you it right back up like it just happened. And you're like, so helpless and hopeless all over again. That means you're in a depressed state. That is one of the stages of grief. And then you're just feeling like you're struggling through it. And then one of those constructs will come up and one of those perceived realities will come up. And here you are again, struggling to find what is real and what is perceived. And a lot of therapy is working through what is real and what is perceived. And so when we can understand that these things will happen, especially as we navigate life transitions and we start seeking success, then we are aware, we accept, and we find action. And the best thing that you can do, and the most beautiful thing of it all, is it's all cycles. It's just a bunch of cycles going around and around. And sometimes they're negative and sometimes they're positive. But at the end of the day, that's all it is. And there's all these points that put us in these cycles. And so for as overwhelming as that feels, and I've got a really great graphic, so go onto my blog, it will be on there to see how attachment and trauma and perceived expectation and emotional regulation and cognitive distortions and negative narratives and invoicing of our partners and anger management is all connected in one. It's like each one has 10 times the compounding cycling happening. So it's very overwhelming, which is why you got to give yourself some grace. It's just, your mind is just an amazing thing and it's doing so many things at once. And that can make you cycle in suffering and emotional dysregulation. And it can also make you an opportunity that it only takes one interjection point to find a neutral. One interjection point. All you have to do is be aware of one thing. And you find your neutral, you ground in that, you stay present with it, and that will help you to start taking a step out of it. So it's exciting that there's no shame in the game, and there's a lot of reasons why we're emotionally reactionary, especially in this day and age. This week is a big week that we're all feeling like we've either overcome a massive hurdle and challenge and we're feeling relieved and strong, or we're feeling very scared and very upset and unknowing of how we want to navigate further with this recent election. And so depending on where you're at, you still may be in an emotional state, because remember, emotional dysregulation is no emotions at all or overly expressing those emotions and not able to get out of an emotional dysregulated state. And so what we're trying to do is find that balance and understand that when the bad brain is taking off, which is all of these cognitive distortions, all of these things that are happening, that we are grounding and understanding that that negative narrative is not ours and that we need to let it go. It does not serve us. And I've got a whole book on the bad brain and rewriting that negative narrative that really keeps us back and holds us back from being able to achieve and succeed. So go on Amazon, get it. You can get the links down in the video description. And really what we're doing is what we're trying to do is understand that when we find awareness, we find acceptance, then we can start finding action, and we ground and find valid data points and positive affirmation constantly to keep us in a rational, wise mind, so that we can enact the action, we can change the neuro wiring that's happening in our brain, and be able to come out with a wise mind from the get-go without having to do all of these steps. It does feel exhausting, I know, and what I tell my clients is that as you're trying to rewire your brain, imagine how hard it is to rewire your house. We're on a gut job over here in our mountain house, and so we are truly down to the point of studs and pulling wires and putting new in. It's complicated. It is time consuming. It's a lot. It's tedious. You've got to find exactly where each one goes. You have to pull all the power, then you have to slowly turn on something, turn it off, turn on a breaker, turn it off, turn on a breaker, labeling where everything goes, tracing where it goes, what's the ampage that you need. It's a lot. So don't expect it to happen immediately, and be okay that it might make you feel a little more neurotic, like you're a little too much in your head. That is meaning that you are starting to rewire and you're starting to build out of this bad brain thinking. So it will feel a little neurotic because you're like, oh man, now I have to notice this and notice this. But what you'll find is as you notice it, you realize how little of it serves you, and you just let it go. And then it's one less thing. And instead of it sitting there ruminating over and over again in your mind, you're like, oh, I don't need this. I can just send it down my river. And it's amazing. Your brain will be like, oh, this wasn't important after all. I picked that up and I didn't understand it. Because remember, implicit brain is building all of this stuff based on your ability to perceive it at the age that you perceived it. And we're not building spatial reasoning well until, late childhood, early adolescence. So that's a lot. That's 11 years of data that is invalid. That's a lot of invalid data because you're hearing it from a concrete space. You're hearing it from a dichotomous state. It's either good girl or bad girl. You either did well or you didn't do well. So remember that a lot of this that's in here that is creating these reactions is truly invalid data points because it doesn't have the ability to create the spectrum. It only has dichotomous thinking, and that will lead you to anxiety. If you want more, we have the Psychology of Success tonight. We're doing a masterclass at 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, November 12th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we're going to go through all of this. You're going to be able to build your first steps to living a successful life. I've got the success groups. I've got a young women's professional group starting on Monday, November 18th, again, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're growing up beyond separation. A men's growth group, a success group, using these emotional regulation techniques. Everything that we just covered today is in my new book. It's coming out early December, late November, early December, just in time for Christmas. And it's going to cover all of the emotional regulation that is so critical for us to be able to achieve success. I am Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Thank you so much. Hi, it's Jennifer Evans. I hope you are liking my videos. If you do, please comment below. Let me know if you have any questions. If there's topics that you're just dying to know about, and why do I do this and why do they do that? I would love to answer them. I do come from a cognitive behavioral background, but as we see in some of my videos, I love object relations. I love attachment theory. I love Erickson and his psychosocial developmental theories. So I do pull from a lot of different places in order to kind of build out that our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors something triggers it, and there's always a consequence after it. And that is the beauty of life and why we have a lot more control over our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors than we give ourselves credit for. This is a huge passion of mine, a calling, if you will. And I am here to support you. I've written 2 books, and I've got, the goal is 3 a year. So I've got several that are coming out in different, on different topics. But what we have right now, and you can go click on the Amazon link in the video descriptions below, but we have Saying Goodbye to Bad Brain. This is going to go and teach you everything you need to know about your negative narrative. So if you feel like life is hard and it just feels like you don't understand people, or you don't understand why somebody you love keeps making the dumbest mistakes and decisions, what is their problem? They have bad brain. Go read about it. Find some empathy. Find some grace, because that is just them recapitulating their past. And we do it for ourselves, and other people do it to us. And so when we know what they're doing, it makes it feel a lot less annoying and a lot more like we have agency over those experiences. So Saying Goodbye to Bad Brain. I also just released, and I'm very excited, is Key Steps to Living a Happier and Healthier Life. This is a workbook that is going to help you define what your values are, what success is for you, and what your vision of success, and it is going to go through everything that stresses us out and makes us live in suffering and despair, allow that bad brain to get involved, and instead of living in the present. So this will go through all the main things: building a work-life balance, being able to be good enough, finding radical acceptance, decision making, which who would have thought that that was something, but it really breaks everything down that prevents you from living a happier and healthier life, and then allowing you to challenge those thoughts so that you can. So these are the key skills. So in my practice, I take the ABC model from Albert Ellis, through CBT, and I kind of open it up to this kind of overarching trajectory. And so we have awareness, acceptance, action. So the 3 A's of my treatment, support with others, whether that's coaching or in therapy, through my books, and I have success groups as well. So I've got a lot of supports, and I use the same model. And that is, we need to build awareness about kind of why we do the things we do. We accept it. We don't agree, but we accept, okay, this is kind of my trajectory. I can see how it all comes together. I see trending patterns. I see how I act the same way. Actually, I get frustrated, but yet I'm acting the same exact ways because it is predictable, because that's my brain. It's bad brain working. It's a really good book. And so then we have action. And so I teach you lots and lots of ways to understand what the brain is doing and how to counter, how to challenge, counter, and do opposite actions. And so we have lots and lots of ways. The Bad Brain book has tons of ways in which we do that. And then the workbook has ways to start reflecting. We have exercises, activities, and journal prompts. And this book will actually, Key Steps to Living a Happier and Healthier Life, will follow my success group. So it is a 6-month success group. We break it down into 9 weeks. This is part 1, is living a happier and healthier life. Then we're going to have, we also have a part 2 section and a part 3. So you can come in at each of those sections, and it will have a continuous flow. Part 2 is our emotional regulation. So we're really looking at the relationship we have with ourselves and how the bad brain comes in and makes us reactionary, and how to calm and be more action oriented. Part 3 is interpersonal skills. How do you relate with others? How do you make yourself available? The key to life is You can't control the outcomes. You got to put all those processes out there. How do you put yourself out in that process to help others and to let others help you? That is section 3. We do have a subscription program, so accountability is everything, and it is in my first part of this workbook. So you can sign up, go to my website, counselingwellnesssolutions.com. It is in the description, and check out all of these great programs that I have set up to help everybody live a happier and healthier life, no matter where your state of change. Thank you so much. Please like and share my videos. I would appreciate it. Thank you.